All right. Hey, everyone. So glad you're here for another deep dive.
Yeah.
We love to get into the nitty-gritty here, and today is no exception. We're talking all about privacy, or maybe the lack thereof in 2025.
Yeah, lack thereof. That might be the key takeaway here, but we'll see. We'll get there.
We're basing this deep dive on an episode of TrendTalk USA. Very interesting show, by the way.
Yeah, they cover some really cutting edge stuff.
Their episode was titled, Privacy in 2025. Can You Escape AI Surveillance? Kind of gives you a sense of where we're headed with this, right?
Oh, yeah, a little ominous for sure.
Big question for today's deep dive. Is Big Brother really watching? Like, really, really watching? Or is that just, a conspiracy theory?
Well, let's see if we can pack that a little bit, shall we?
Let's do it. So, Trend Talk jumped right into the deep end. They start talking about facial recognition.
Oh, boy.
And they dropped this stat that 89% of U.S. cities are using facial recognition technology.
Wow. I knew it was becoming more common, but that's a lot higher than I would have guessed.
Yeah, I was surprised too. They get into some pretty specific examples, like New York City is using it to track people in the subway.
Really? Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, and this one blew my mind. The LAPD is using it for these so-called pre-crime initiatives.
Pre-crime, so like Minority Report stuff?
Exactly. It's straight out of science fiction. It's like they're trying to predict where crimes are going to happen and stop them before they even occur.
That's both fascinating and incredibly unnerving, right? Like, on the one hand, you can see how that could potentially be used to prevent crime, but on the other hand, it feels like we're stepping into some very ethically murky territory.
Oh, absolutely. And Trend Talk actually touched on that. They talked about how there's a lot of concern about potential bias with these AI systems. Like, are they going to disproportionately target certain groups of people?
Yeah, that's a huge concern, and it's not just theoretical either. There have been real-world cases where facial recognition technology has led to wrongful arrests, particularly of people of color.
They actually shared a story in the episode about a Latina nurse named Maria who was wrongfully arrested because of an AI error, and she spent 3 days in jail because of it.
3 days, that's awful. It just highlights how these systems are far from perfect and the real human cost of these mistakes.
It's a really powerful reminder that we need to be incredibly careful with how we implement this technology because the stakes are incredibly high.
Absolutely. And it's not just law enforcement using facial recognition either. I mean, think about it. We're using it every day to unlock our phones, right?
Oh, yeah, that's true. I guess it's easy to forget that that's facial recognition, too.
Right. And the more we use it, the more normalized it becomes and the less we tend to think about the potential implications.
And Trend Talk pointed out that some stores are even using facial recognition to identify customers and then target them with personalized ads.
Is that even legal? I mean, that just feels so invasive.
I honestly don't know about the legality of it, but it's definitely happening. It's like they're trying to read your mind, figure out what you want before you even know it yourself.
And that kind of leads into the whole issue of data collection, which is really at the heart of this whole privacy conversation, right?
Absolutely. So let's say you decide, okay, I'm done with facial recognition. I'm just going to stick to encrypted messaging apps. I'll keep all my conversations private that way.
You'd think so, right? I mean, that's what these apps are designed for.
Right. But Trend Talk actually debunked that myth. They said even apps marketed as secure aren't truly private.
How is that even possible? I thought encryption was supposed to make messages unreadable.
Well, the thing is, they're not necessarily reading the messages themselves, but they're collecting metadata.
Metadata, what is that?
It's basically data about data. So
Okay.
in this case, it's not the actual content of your messages, but things like who you're contacting, when you're contacting them, how long you're talking, that kind of stuff.
Oh, I see. So they're not seeing what you're saying, but they're seeing who you're talking to and when.
Exactly. And Trend Talk said the NSA has this program called Project MindReader, which can use AI to analyze that metadata and actually predict behavior.
Predict behavior. How can they do that just from knowing who you're talking to?
Well, apparently AI is really good at finding patterns and making connections, even from seemingly insignificant data points. So by looking at your communication patterns, they can start to build a picture of your relationships, your habits, even your personality.
That's kind of terrifying. And it's not just the NSA doing this, right? I mean, any company that collects data on you can potentially use AI to analyze it and draw conclusions about your behavior.
Exactly. And then there's all the other data points that are constantly being collected, like your location data, your purchase history, your biometrics.
Right. It's like everything we do leaves a digital trail. And that trail can be used to track us and profile us in ways we might not even realize.
And Trend Talk brought up this really unsettling new development with ChatGPT 5. Apparently, it can analyze writing styles to link anonymous posts to real identities.
Wait, so even if you're posting anonymously online, they might be able to figure out who you are.
That's what they're saying. It's like the concept of anonymity is becoming increasingly meaningless.
That's a pretty chilling thought. It's like the walls are closing in.
So is there anything we can do to protect our privacy in this brave new world?
TrendTalk offered a few suggestions, some more practical than others. They talked about things like using cash to avoid biometric payment systems, buying burner phones with cryptocurrency, even using anti-surveillance fashion.
Anti-surveillance fashion. Like, what is that clothes designed to confuse AI?
Yeah, basically clothes with patterns or designs that make it harder for facial recognition systems to identify you.
Does that actually work?
It's hard to say for sure. It's definitely a growing trend, but whether it's truly effective or more of a symbolic protest is still up for debate.
So what's the bottom line? Can we actually maintain any semblance of privacy in 2025?
Well, Trend Talk cited an MIT study that found that 97% of Americans are already in at least 10 AI databases.
10 databases, wow. So basically we're already out there.
Yeah, it seems like true anonymity might be a thing of the past.
So if we can't be anonymous, what can we do?
Well, I think the first step is awareness, right? We need to be aware of the ways in which our data is being collected and used, and then we can start making informed choices about the technology we use and the information we share.
So it's not about being completely invisible. It's about being more intentional with what we choose to make visible.
Exactly. And maybe it's also about pushing back, demanding more transparency and accountability from the companies and institutions that are collecting our data.
Yeah, I like that, taking back some control instead of just passively accepting the status quo.
Yeah, because ultimately our privacy is something we have to fight for. It's not something that's just going to be handed to us.
Well said. So to wrap up our deep dive into AI surveillance in 2025, it's clear that things are getting complicated, but knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely. The more we understand about the technologies that are shaping our lives, the better equipped we are to make informed decisions about our future.
So the question for you, dear listener, is now that you know, what are you going to do about it?
Are you going to shrug and accept the inevitable, or are you going to fight for your right to privacy?
Heavy stuff. Food for thought for sure. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Take care. Stay vigilant out there.
You too.
Bye.